So, good morning from Chicago. My name is Trace, and I'm an international admissions counselor here at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. So today I'm going to kind of give you an overview of the school and our programs. So obviously, as the name of our university suggests, we are located in the city of Chicago. Chicago is in the Midwest of the United States with a population of around 3 million people. And we're located on Lake Michigan, which is a really large body of water. And we're known as being like the birthplace of the skyscraper. So we do have lots of skyscrapers in the downtown area of the city. And I think anyone who's interested in studying, in the art and design fields, it's really important to be in big cities just because that's typically the place where you have a lot of cultural institutions. So that's obviously very much the case for the city of Chicago. We have tons of museums, tons of galleries. We're kind of known as being a city with many distinct neighborhoods. So there's around 77 different neighborhoods in Chicago that kind of have their, specific populations that live there, or certain things that make them interesting. This part of the video here will show you how our campus is really integrated in the downtown area of the city. So our academic buildings and our residence halls are in the orange here. So we don't have a separate campus that's, distinct from the city. We're very much a part of the city in the downtown area. And then this will kind of give you another shot of our campus in the downtown area. So this shows our really large public park, which is Millennium Park. And then the buildings that you see in the park are the museum, the Art Institute of Chicago, and then one of our main academic buildings. And I'll talk about our relationship to the museum in just a second. But obviously, before I begin, we do always like to brag about our rankings as being one of the top art and design schools in the world. So we're ranked number 7 in the world, and then number 2 as a college of art and design in the United States. And then we do have certain programs, specific programs that are also very highly ranked. So you can see all of these programs here and their rankings. It's important to note that we're really kind of always talked about as being one of the most influential art and design colleges in the United States and North America. And then we are a top producer of Fulbright scholars. So if you're not familiar, the Fulbright program is run by the U.S. Department of State for international scholarship. So a lot of times students complete this program after their graduation, either from our undergraduate or our master's programs, and it allows them to do research abroad. So we're really proud of the fact that, we're kind of known for being a top producer of these scholars. So like I was saying, we have a really tight relationship with the Art Institute of Chicago. So obviously we are one institution, and the Art Institute of Chicago is the 3rd largest art museum in the world after the Louvre in Paris and the Met in New York. And it's maybe not as well known that the school actually started first, and it was the first teachers at the School of the Art Institute that started creating a collection to be used as a teaching resource. And then obviously over time, that collection just got bigger and bigger. So now obviously it's led to the point where we have a really huge art museum in the city of Chicago. This is a really great resource for students because obviously students have free access to the museum. So it's a place where you'll be spending a lot of time. And like I was saying, one of our main academic buildings is actually attached to the museum. So you don't even need to go outside to get into the museum, to go look in the collections and things like this. And then this is a shot of the modern wing. So in around 2010, they made a really huge expansion to the museum, which gave us the modern wing, which is great just because it created a lot more square footage to be able to show, an even larger part of our collection to the public. And then we have a lot of other amazing resources on campus. So we have the Gene Siskel Film Center, which I actually just went to yesterday. So it really is just a cinema that is run by the school, and they play movies that you can go see. They really bring in a lot of cinema from all over the world. And then they also have their own like artist lectures, or they bring in directors to give talks about their work. In our fashion department, we have the Fashion Resource Center, which is a collection of around 1,000 garments from fashion history. So you could go in and you could really look, up close and personal, like garments created from like the high points of fashion, or, made by major fashion designers. We have the Ryerson Library, which is pictured here. This is a library located within the museum that is not typically open to the public. And since this is, a museum library for the museum, it's obviously really focused on art and design. So it really has tons of books that would be really kind of necessary for doing research in art history, or, in art and design. In the museum, within our Department of Prints and Drawings, we have the study room. So within this department, this is the department that has all of our works on paper. I think it's around 80,000 to 100,000 works of art that are done on paper. So what you can do is you can make an appointment to go into their study room, and you send them a list of artworks that you would like to see, and they do pull them from the vaults and put them on display for you. So that way you can look at these artworks up close and personal, and you can kind of do research if you're, focusing on any certain artist. The same thing goes for our Textile Resource Center. This is the museum department that has our collection of textiles. So again, you can make an appointment to go look at these textiles, if that's something that really interests you. And then finally, at the school, we have a collection of artist books that we maintain and add to, called the Joan Flash Artist Books Collection. So again, you can make an appointment to go there to look at these works. And then for anyone obviously interested in studying art and design, you obviously want to make sure that you're choosing a school that has all of the infrastructure and all of the resources and tools that you need to make your artwork. So we are really proud of the fact that we really offer a lot of amazing tools to our students to be able to make their artwork, anything from 3D printing to tons of video and cameras and photography equipment. We have a metal studio, and we're one of the only places in the city of Chicago that has a metal foundry. So really any resource or tool that you could think of that you would need to make your artwork, we really do have it on campus for our students to be able to use. And then on this slide, this kind of talks about the things that set us apart as being a top art and design school. So one thing to know is that our degrees are highly customizable. We really practice interdisciplinary curriculum, which means that our students have a lot of freedom in choosing what departments they want to work in and what their class schedule should look like. Obviously, there are rules and parameters of certain number of courses that you need to take, but students have really a lot of freedom in building their undergraduate education. We really believe that meaning and making are inseparable. So for this reason, we do also have a rigorous liberal arts and art history program. So while you're at the school, you will be spending a lot of time in the studio making artwork, but you'll also be, in an academic setting where you really will be kind of building your intellectual skills to make interesting artwork and interesting design work. So on this kind of same vein, it's important to note that we do not have grades at the school. We are on a credit or no credit system. So what this means and how you get feedback about your work is really done through the critique-based process. So this will be formal critiques, at maybe the midpoint of the semester and at the end of the semester, where you'll be putting your artwork up for the class and really discussing your work as a whole class. And that's how you'd be getting feedback in that, really formal way. But there are also very informal ways that you would be getting, feedback about your work and advice about your work. Obviously, at the school, you'll be having a lot of one-on-one conversations with your professors about your artwork. We have a 15-to-1 student to professor ratio. So this does mean that you have a lot of one-on-one time with your professors that will really be offering you a lot of, really in-depth advice about your work. And on that same vein, we should point out the fact that Our faculty and our professors, they are all working artists, and they are all, exhibiting their own work and making their own work. So they're really bringing like their firsthand knowledge of the contemporary art world into the classroom, and they're really an invaluable resource for our students. And then the last thing to know is that we really do have an immersive studio classroom. So most of our studio classes, they last for at least 6 hours. So this really gives you the time that you need to be in the studio to make your work. So obviously, since we're in art school, you're like the most of your time will really be spent in the studio creating your artwork. So just to give you a rough breakdown of how the class schedule ends up working out, our students typically spend 2/3 of their classes in the studio. So in studio classes, actually making work and talking about their work. And then about 1/3 of their time is spent in our liberal arts and art history classes. So again, that kind of more academic setting that gives you the intellectual skills that you need for your work. And these are our general areas of study at the school. So like I was saying, these are kind of our major, artistic departments at the school. So you'll see like obviously painting and drawing, photography, print media, sculpture, writing. But as I was saying earlier, in regards to our interdisciplinary programs, our students really have a lot of freedom in being able to work in any number of these departments. So if you're an artist, who's really interested in multimedia or really working in different media, you really have a lot of freedom in being able to do that. So if you're interested like in painting, but you're also interested in photography or also interested in sculpture, during your time at SAIC, you're really allowed to be taking courses in any one of these departments. But then on the flip side, if you're someone who is really maybe wants to focus on one department in particular, that's also definitely a possibility. So let's say you really just want to focus on painting during your time at SAIC. That's completely possible, because in any one of our departments, we have enough faculty and we have enough teachers in those departments that you would never get bored, or you would never run out of classes to take. You would really have a lot of possibilities even just within one department. But again, our students really just have a lot of freedom in how they're building their courses and building their schedule. You would never really just be given a schedule to you by the school. You would really yourself be picking what courses you want to take in, what departments you want to be working in. So again, it's just a really highly customizable degree. We do offer some programs at the school that do have specialized pathways. These are typically more on the design side of things. So in architecture, interior architecture, design objects, visual communication design, or fashion design. Visual communication design, people typically think of this as like graphic design, but visual communication is just a larger term that talks about that. But in any case, like I was saying, in these programs, they do tend to be a little bit more structured. And after your first year at the school, you would be applying to these programs, with an interview to make sure that you're ready for the upper level classes. And once you're accepted into these programs, they are a little bit more restrictive in terms of what classes the department wants you to take to be ready to work in that field after you graduate. These are the undergraduate degrees that we offer at the school. So our most popular degree is the BFA in studio art. We also have a BFA with an emphasis in writing and a BFA with an emphasis in art education. And then we do have 2 bachelor's degrees, so a Bachelor of Art in Art History or Bachelor of Visual and Critical Studies. These last 2 degrees are a little bit more academic in nature, a little bit more focused on doing research in art history and VCS. And they are, a little bit more focused on, like, at the end of your studies, you would be writing, a thesis that's at least 100 pages, based on your topic of interest, based on your area of research. So those are good things to mention, that those are other degrees that we also offer at the school. So I'll flip focus a little bit and I'll kind of talk about what it's like to be a student at SAIC. So one thing that we want to mention obviously is our career and our professional experience office, or we call it our CapX office. And I have a picture of their office here, which has a really nice view overlooking Millennium Park and the museum and Lake Michigan. So this office is here really to help point our students, in the right direction for their career and thinking about life after art school. So they have counselors in the office that you'd be able to meet with. If you're ever preparing for jobs or trying to get an internship, they can help you review your cover letters or your resume, really to help make sure that you're sending in a polished application for those things. And they're also there kind of to talk about your options for what would be maybe a good fit for you career-wise after school. Like I was saying, their main task in this office is really overseeing our internship program. So we have the oldest and most successful arts-related internship program in the country. We have relationships with more than 2,000 employers, that participate with us annually. And we find that I think we have around 300 to 400 students who are completing internships off campus every semester. So on this page, I'll kind of show you, the big name places where a lot of our students have done internships in the past. So some of them are really big, architecture companies or the Opera House here in Chicago, or fashion companies, or obviously big museums or galleries or auction houses. So I should mention that during your course of study at the school, you are required to take 2 courses off campus. So doing, for example, 2 internships would be a way of meeting this requirement. And you're not obligated to do the internship just in the city of Chicago. If you have the option of going to another city or doing it abroad, that's obviously welcome and allowed. You would just have to, do the steps to make sure that your internship is kind of validated by the CapX office to make sure you're getting those credits. And like I was saying, we have tons of relationships that goes way beyond just the slide that I'm showing you here. And students also have the option of, kind of creating their own internships. So if there's any place in Chicago that you want to work, or any place, any artist or designer that you want to work with, you also have the option of setting up your own internship, and the CapX office would really help you through that process. So this is obviously a really great way to start building your professional experience during your undergraduate studies. And for this reason, we have consistently found, in surveys of our graduating students, that about 95% of our students are employed or go to graduate school within 6 months of graduation. So we are really preparing students for, having a career in a creative field, which really allows them to have the skills really right away to be able to get employed, or, to go on to graduate school if that's something you want to do as well. So, there's obviously a lot of stigma about, studying art and design, that people kind of always think about the starving artist, who's not really able to make a lot of money. So I hope that, with these statistics, we're kind of breaking down that stigma and kind of showing how it's not true. So, obviously I talked about like our high graduation rate for our alumni. There have also been numerous studies in the United States that have shown that arts graduates are among the happiest professionals in the US. And we really do believe that, the skills that you make at, you kind of gather in art school in terms of critical and creative thinking is really what's going to allow our students kind of be the innovators and the trend setters of the future that will really be inventing a lot of the things that we'll be using in the next, decades to come. Also at the school, we do offer study trips and study abroad opportunities. So we do have relationships with a lot of universities around the world where our students have been able to do either semesters or a year abroad studying at art schools at other universities in other countries. And then during our winter and our summer terms, our students have been able to have been able to go on study trips with SAIC professors. So they've gone to places like Ireland or Italy or all over Europe, or to Los Angeles and to New York, either to be making artwork together as a class in those specific places, or sometimes the trips are a little bit more focused on going to major museums, really big galleries, also visiting artist studios, and then kind of doing research around those trips within the field of contemporary art. So this is another way of meeting that requirement of doing 2 courses off campus. We have a very active student body on campus. So we have over 50 student groups that are really talking about, are dealing with a lot of really different subjects, whether that's a yoga group, or we have a lot of dance groups, or community service groups, or we do have sports groups on campus. So that's a really great way to get involved and to meet other people at the university. Since we are an art school, there are obviously always exhibitions to see on our campus. We have lots of gallery spaces. There are always many artist lectures. So we bring in a lot of really famous artists that would be talking about their work or meeting with students. And then each department also has their own artist lecture programs. So there's really always lots of things to do on campus besides your classes. And obviously our classes are very rigorous. So it can be hard to keep up with everything that's going on campus, but you would really never be bored just because there's so many things to be doing at any one time. We do have residence halls located in the downtown area of Chicago. So really they're like a 5 or 10 minute walk away from our academic building. They're kind of more apartment style. So you'd have 1 or 2 roommates. You would have a private bathroom in your apartment and a small private kitchen. We do have studio spaces in our residence halls. So obviously this is great if you are, working on projects, you can kind of do them more in the comfort of your own home, but then you wouldn't be, getting your apartment, too dirty. You'd have a nice space to make a nice mess if you need to for your work. I kind of mentioned before that we have lots of gallery spaces on campus. So we do have one of the largest contemporary gallery sites in the city of Chicago. So it's located downtown. So this is a space that we have around 12 exhibitions per year. We have our BFA and our MFA exhibitions. So these are exhibitions, for our graduating classes that they're able to show their work in these spaces at the end of the year to kind of, show off what they've done during their course of study at SAIC. And that gallery space is located on street level in the downtown area. So that's important to note just because obviously millions of people would be walking by that space during any year, and they can kind of see into the gallery to see what our SAIC students have been doing in the studio. And then around campus, we have a system of smaller student-run galleries. So these are located in really every one of our academic buildings. So in these spaces, this is really space that we'd really be exhibiting work of student artists. So it's another really good opportunity to start showing your work as an artist. Or if you're someone who's maybe interested in museum studies, or working in galleries or working with exhibitions, you could work for this gallery on their committee, and you'd be helping them organize their exhibitions every year, which would be a good opportunity to get that experience. And then here I'll kind of talk about what we require for our application process. So for applying to art and design schools, for their undergraduate program or even for their graduate programs, the major thing that we look at when reviewing our applicants is looking through their portfolio of work. So I'll give you examples on these next couple of slides of portfolios that we have received in the past that have been admitted to the school and then have also been given merit scholarships. So these are portfolios that have received really high scores from us. So I can kind of talk through you about what we like to see in portfolios and what would make you a good applicant for the school. And this idea of putting together a portfolio, this is something that artists and designers will be doing throughout their whole career. So for students applying to our undergraduate programs, this may be the first time that you would be, putting together a portfolio, but this is something that you would do, even after you graduate, if you apply for, juried gallery exhibitions, if you're applying for jobs, if you're applying for publications or grants. So it's a good habit to start thinking about your way, start thinking about your work in this way. So like I said, this is one example, and then I'll do a deeper dive of other portfolios that, we view as being successful. So there are a variety of approaches when it comes to putting together a portfolio. So you can focus, just on one media, whether that's painting, whether that's photography, or really whatever you think would be the best or whatever you're most comfortable working with. So that could work. You could have a breadth portfolio where you're really working in different media across, working across different media, just kind of showing us the breadth of what you're able to do as an artist or designer. We are maybe a little bit less interested in a technique-based portfolio, since we're not really a really traditional fine art school. So that's something to think about, but we don't have any requirements within our portfolio of what students have to do. So we don't tell students that they have to submit a technique-based drawing, for example. So that's why we're a little bit less interested in seeing that type of work. We are obviously really interested in interdisciplinary or experimental portfolios. So obviously this example that I'm giving here on this slide would be considered an interdisciplinary portfolio, just because this artist is working in many different media, whether it looks like digital work, painting, sculpture, looks like public art with a mural. So that's definitely a possibility. You could give us a single body of work that's really focused around one coherent idea, or you could give us a combination of the above. So I should really just mention that for us, since we are a non-traditional school, we don't have any requirements of what students have to submit to us. They just have to submit 10 to 15 works, and we really ask for the best quality of work. So you would really have to be making a selection of what you want to be showing us. But within that criteria, that's really open, because it's really based on what the student wants to show us. So we really want them to show us the work that they're most proud of. And we really typically like to see work that's cohesive and shows a clear point of view. So we consider a portfolio like this one here to be strong, just because it is experimental and it is interdisciplinary, but we do get a sense that this work was all created by one student. So it's showing us a clear point of view, even though this artist is working in many different media. So that's why we would consider this portfolio to be, have a little bit more qualities that we find to be interesting. I'll kind of do a deeper dive in this portfolio that we've received in past years. And I should mention that, I'm just showing a screenshot of how we view applications online. So students would be submitting their images of 10 to 15 works online, and this is typically how we see them. And then we do obviously have the option to click through the works and to see a larger image. So again, we would consider this portfolio to be strong, just because this portfolio gives us a really good sense of the artist's point of view and what they're interested in working on. So obviously this artist is interested in portraiture. They're kind of interested in a more cartoony like style. And they have a kind of clear aesthetic choice and a clear style. But then again, we kind of consider this portfolio to be strong also because they're really working in an interdisciplinary fashion. So they're working in painting, they're working in digital work, they're working in drawing, they're working in sculpture. But again, all of their work kind of makes sense and is, can be viewed cohesively. So we really get a good sense of what this artist is trying to accomplish and what they're trying to communicate and what their point of view is. So that's why, again, we would kind of consider this to be a strong work when we review portfolios. And then this next slide, I'm just showing you the really great ways that the student documented their work. like that's important because obviously we're only seeing images of the work. So you want to make sure that you're sending in the best images to us. And I should also mention that we really don't have the option of zooming in on the pictures. So you also want to keep in mind that when you are submitting your work. So like on this piece on the left, for instance, it's really great that this artist gave us a detailed shot of their work, just because obviously the texture of this piece is really intricate. And if they didn't provide us with this detailed shot, we wouldn't have the option of zooming in and we really wouldn't be able to see that. So that would be really like an important part of the piece that we wouldn't have available to us. So that's really important that you think about that when you're documenting your work. And then with this piece on the right, obviously with sculpture, if you're in a gallery or museum, you're obviously able to walk around the sculpture. But since this is in a digital format, you want to think like this artist and showing us maybe multiple views of your sculpture, just so we get a whole sense of the piece. And then this artist submitted their sketchbook to us, which can be sometimes useful. Again, I should mention, we really only want to see your best work, with the highest quality. So sending in a sketchbook may not always be a good idea, but with this artist, their sketchbook is very developed and it has a very clear relationship with their other work. So at times it could be good to send it in a sketchbook. And the way that this artist, created this display of showing us multiple pages on one slide is also a really good strategy to kind of show us the variety in their sketchbook too. So that's why this seems like a very thought out portfolio that, the artist put in a lot of time and effort in, which again is why we would consider this to be a really strong submission to the school. And then along with your portfolio, we ask for a artist statement to be submitted with your application. So this is different than like a personal statement that a lot of universities ask for, because it's really, really specific and, speaking to your work as an artist. So there are certain things that we want to keep in mind when you're writing your artist statement, and there's certain things that we're looking for when we're evaluating these. So in your artist statement, you really just want to be addressing your current work as an artist, and you want to be discussing the work that you submitted to us. So you really want to be answering the big questions about your work as an artist. You want to be talking about, what you're working with, what materials you work with, what ideas you're working with, why you're interested in working with these materials or working with these ideas. You want to explain how you make your work, whether that's explaining the research that you do to make your work, or you're explaining the whole process that you use to make your work. And then you really want to be providing the context for your work. So you want to be talking about, what artists you're interested in, what writers you're interested in, or maybe what films you're interested in, really the things that are feeding your work as an artist. You always want to bring it back to the work in your portfolio. So we do suggest that it's a good idea to talk about maybe one or two pieces. But then again, this is different than a personal statement. So you don't need to talk about your personal experience. The only reason you would talk about your personal experiences or your biography is if these are ideas that you're talking about in your work as an artist or in your portfolio, but otherwise it's not really necessary to talk about those things. The artist statement is typically 200 to 500 words. So obviously you want to really communicate clearly and simply, just so we have a good idea of what you're trying to accomplish as an artist. You obviously want to have it proofread and make sure that it, there's no mistakes in your statement. And you can always ask us for help. So you can send us an artist statement and we can review it for you, to help make sure that you're submitting a really good artist statement within your application. For any younger students, we do offer early college programs in the summer terms. So these are for year 10 or year 11 students that you would come to Chicago to take these courses from SAIC professors. And this would give you a good sense if SAIC would be a good university for you. And this would also be helping you prepare your portfolio submission for your application in your year 12 of high school. We do offer college credits for these high school programs or high school diplomas. So if you receive high scores in the AP or the IB program, then you would be able to start SAIC with a couple of classes out of the way. It's important to note that all admitted students are considered for merit scholarships to the school. And I've found that really the vast majority of international students receive a scholarship of some kind to study at the school. But when we're reviewing applicants for their admission to the school, at the same time, we're automatically considering them for merit scholarship. So students don't need to do anything extra to be considered for merit scholarship. As long as you submit your application by our deadlines, then we will automatically be considering you for merit scholarship. And like I said, really the vast majority of international students receive a scholarship of some kind to study at the school. And then these are our general application requirements for the school. So obviously I talked about the portfolio and the artist statements in great detail, but for the other things that you need to do, obviously you need to send us all of your high school transcripts so we can check on what grades you received during your career, which is another important part of what we look at in our applicants. We are on the common application. So this is where you'd be sending us, all of your information, your personal information. It's also where you would be inviting people to send in your transcripts on your behalf. We do ask for a letter of recommendation. So this is again done through the Common App typically, or it can be emailed to our office. And then for any student whose first language is in English, we do ask for a proficiency exam. So these are things like the TOEFL or the IELTS. And then we are test optional for the ACT and the SAT. So the only test that we look for is just this English exam. And then these are typically our deadlines, and typically these deadlines are the same every year. So we do recommend that if possible, students submit their application by the November 15th deadline for our early action and priority merit scholarship. This is important because at this time, by that November 15th deadline, that's when we have the most money available for our scholarships. So students who apply by this deadline tend to get scholarships that can be higher. But if you're not ready, if your portfolio isn't ready by that deadline, our final deadline for merit scholarships, which just passed, is January 15th. And then our final application deadline is April 15th. And that kind of concludes my presentation today. So on this slide, I'm giving my personal information and my direct email address. So if there are any questions at any time, you can always feel free to email me and I'll get back to you. And then I also put a QR code here, which you can scan. And this allows you to sign up for our mailing list. So you can kind of stay in touch with the school and, get information sent to you from us. And this kind of checks you in to this presentation today, which is good because part of our application process too is kind of measuring your engagement through us during the application process. So that's a good way to show the school that you're interested in studying with us. So thank you for having me. That kind of concludes my presentation for today. I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you very much, Trace. Thank you for your informative. Thank you for your informative presentation, and we really appreciate your time and effort. Would you mind if we share your email address with the video, and if there is any question or inquiry, they can contact you?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So I'll send you the recording soon.